Dear friends in Christ, on Friday of the 19th week of Ordinary Time Year, we also celebrate the feast of Maximilian Kolbe, being the 14th day of August. The readings, particularly Matthew 19, present before us what it means to live the value of the kingdom. The value of the kingdom is to live for God and others rather than living for the self. In the Gospel, Matthew 19, we are presented with the apostles approaching Jesus to ask them about divorce. Their concept is about putting the woman away. That is to say, if she is no longer pleasing to me according to my own estimation, can I put her away? Jesus presents the values of the kingdom, that it's not about what we can get. It's about what we can sacrifice, what we can offer for the sake of God and for the sake of others. He presents a scenario, three of them. Number one, those who were born eunuch from their mother's womb, those who were made eunuch by others, and those who choose to make themselves eunuch. That is to say, they want to stay without marriage for the sake of the kingdom. That is very sacrificial. And that is where the Catholic priesthood and religious life comes from, where one could be given to marriage, but he or she chooses to stay single, sacrificing what he would have loved for the sake of the kingdom. And in that concept, they begin to live in this world what it would mean to live in the kingdom of heaven. You may remember this scenario where people presented before Jesus a woman who was married to 7 brothers, and they said to Jesus, who would the husband be at the end? Jesus says, you are so deceived or misguided, because in the kingdom of heaven, they are not going to be given into marriage. They're going to live like sons and daughters of God. So to live in this world a life of sacrifice, be it in the priesthood, religious life, marriage, or single life, is to represent in this world the reality of what it means to live in God's kingdom, where we are completely detached from everything, including marriage, focusing on God and focusing on those that God has put in our lives. Maximilian Kolbe, whom we celebrate today, lived it and showed us a great example. A few years ago, I had the privilege of leading over 50 people on pilgrimage. We went to Poland, and then eventually we went to the concentration camp. The guide at the concentration camp, when he saw me in my Roman collar and said to me, are you a Catholic priest? And I said, yes. He said, come in here. He took me to this little cell where Maximilian Kolbe spent his life and the last moment of his life. It was in that cell when a gentleman was called upon by the soldiers to be executed. He cried out, oh, my wife and my children, what am I going to do? Maximilian Kolbe heard him and said to the soldiers, I don't have a wife, I'm a Catholic priest, I don't have children, let me take his place. They said to him, do you know what you're asking for? You're going to be killed in his place. He said, yes, I know that. He was killed in place for that man. A few years ago, that man came here to the United States and gave a testimony as to the life of Maximilian Kolbe, how he gave himself and his life in his place. What a powerful witness. That's where we get the word martyrs, or taken from the martyreo, that is witnessing. He witnessed with his life what it means to live for God and for others rather than to live for the self. In your own life, maybe you are not going to be called to witness with your life by shedding blood, which is called red martyrdom, but there is another one called white martyrdom, where we witness to God's love for others by not living only for ourselves, but by living for God and for others. That's what the readings are talking about today. An invitation to each one of us to witness to the realities of God's life by being loving to others for the sake of God, rather than being over concerned with our own benefit and ourselves. That is something we need to take to heart, whether we are able to live not just for ourselves, but for God and for others.